Hey gamers, welcome to the PTGC podcast. My name is Gerard. Joining me are my other hosts, Gio and Mike. Say hi, everyone.
What's up, guys?
Today is a serious conversation. We'll be talking about video game addiction and the recent lawsuit against certain video game companies about this addiction. But first, I wanted to give a definition of what is addiction. Addiction is, under the Oxford definition, the fact or condition of being addicted to a particular substance, thing, or activity. In this case, video games. Now, the recent lawsuit that has come up about video games was actually just sent to me in his article by Gio. So, Gio, do you have the article open in front of you? If not,
Yeah,
then you could just
I do.
paraphrase. Okay. Can you give me a quote, or like at least tell me what the lawsuit is, if you don't mind?
Basically, the complaints dedicates a number of pages to describing generally the alleged addictive properties of each game. Some commonly criticized aspects of modern games come up, such as predatory monetization and deceptive UI tricks called dark patterns.
Yeah. So, this video game lawsuit is against a whole bunch of video game companies, Epic Games or Activision as an example, and these companies are being sued because their games, for quote unquote, are too entertaining. They have a whole bunch of like nuances, like dark patterns and things like that. But like the lawsuit is basically these games are too entertaining and they're causing addictions in children. An example in the article is like a 12-year-old who grew up to 21, who's been addicted for basically his entire life, and his mother can't stop him in fear of retaliation, and he's spending $350 a month, which I call rookie numbers. But in all seriousness, video game addiction is a serious health issue, and there are many thoughts about this. But I want to first ask everyone: do you think this lawsuit has grounds? Do you think this is a valid lawsuit?
Go ahead, Mike. I'll let you go.
Sorry. I think it has an argument. I will say that, especially with the dark urges, what are
Patterns. Dark patterns.
Dark urges.
dark patterns, rewarding, you know, kids. But I think it's like, yes, there's merits and there's an argument for it because it is a serious thing. But at the same time, do I see it where they are gonna prevail or win this argument against these companies? I don't think so. I don't believe so. I think it's kind of like a two-way street. It could be, there's a lot of context that we probably don't know about their personal situations. So yes, while I think addiction is serious and it should be taken as a serious matter, and it doesn't have to be addiction to drugs. That's why they have gambling addictions, stuff like that, and not video game addictions. I believe it, like I said, it's a two-way street between the parents probably didn't. I don't want to say this because then everybody's gonna, but like maybe try to set boundaries. Like I don't know the context. That's just the context of every households that we don't know about. But I don't think this lawsuit will prevail against the companies. I don't think it's gonna change how gaming company operates. It's just. But do I think it has grounds? Yes, I do believe it has grounds for at least an argument for it.
What about you, Gio?
I do believe that they are exploiting certain things, and I feel like certain things should be, I guess, regulated in a sense. But I know it's a double-edged sword with that, so it's just how you would go about it. I would support the lawsuit also if it's actually to create change that's beneficial to the gaming community in the long run. But if it's just a cash grab to, I gotta say, make you feel better for your failures in a sense, to control the addiction or get help for the addiction or to avoid the addiction as a person that is addicted or the parent themselves, then I don't really agree with that, because you're not I gotta say, you're not addressing the root cause, and you're not looking to really help others. You're just looking to, I guess, make yourself feel better about what happened and what you've allowed to happen, in a sense.
Yeah. And I would like to jump on and say, like, I do agree. Like, there is, especially for children, there is a fiscal responsibility for parents to be aware of the dangers of video game, but just not only addiction, but like other dangers. Like, the reason why the rating system exists was kind of to follow suit with movies, where in order to buy like certain games, you need to be old age. So mature games, you need to be at least 17 or 18 to purchase them. But like, that still fails if the parent still buys like their 10-year-old or 11-year-old GTA. Like, these have mature content on the ratings on the box, and it says these things. And this is just one of the regulations we have for video games, and those kind of things are not even being enforced as much. So imagine when you are putting a lawsuit that there should be restrictions or regulations on a game hitting those dark patterns, which are an example of a dark pattern, by the way. It's like loot boxes or battle passes or things like that, where you provide some kind of monetary value to the player or the person so they have a sense of accomplishment, by like giving them, hey, here's a shiny thing that you could not gotten otherwise in any other way. So behind these dopamine rushes is actual physical things. And video games, or gaming in general, has always been an addictive process. Let's just look at casino games, for example. There's always been an addictive process. So the grounds that the lawsuit brings, where like a game being too entertaining, does not really fit that process, because a game being too entertaining is not the source or the root of an addiction. There are many other things that get formed into it, like scenarios, lifestyles, patterns, or just also the overall loop. The gameplay loop for all games is a matter of fact what's important. So video game addiction is more nuanced than just a game being too entertaining, because that forms so many things, so many variables, and for each person, an entertaining game is different.
I mean, I kind of want to add to like the ratings, and even if you try to put like restrictions, the ratings. I mean, we've gone to under rated R movies as the under 18. So I'm sure like you can't regulate that, because there's gonna be other parents that let kids buy those games, and then you're friends with that kid, and you're gonna eventually play GTA if the parents allow that. Some other parents allow that, so it can't never be kind of like strict regulations, but like you can't stop that. And sometimes there's, like I said, there's always context behind every addiction, how it became that, how they became it. It could just be just a codependent on it due to stress of the other way out. We play video games to kind of be outside of reality, and it could just be a codependent, and then it just kicks off like that as an addiction. Like they just becomes very addicted, or maybe their parents are divorcing and that's their only way out, and it just became like addiction is a serious matter. It's a disease. Same thing with alcohol. Same thing with gambling. It's just an innate, I guess, mental state status or whatever you want to call it. It's just sometimes it can't be helped. Sometimes if the parents could do everything they could do possibly right, it's really just it's a disease, and it's a serious.
Here's what I'll say. Like I said, about supporting the lawsuits at these families, because it's not just that one family in the article. There's numerous families. I'm all in support of them if they're also acknowledging and holding themselves accountable, because you have to play devil's advocate in the sense, like you said, there is parents that let their kids play these games that are rated not for their age. That's on you if you bought that game. That's not on the game company. You purchased that game knowing that game is rated for adults, not for your child. So you have to take responsibility in the sense as a parent that, hey, if I buy this game for him or her, let me make sure I make it clear, this is not, real per se. This is just for fun, because they say gaming, there's other claims against gaming, not just even the monetization of dark patterns of like financial things. It's just like making kids violent and stuff like that. I don't agree with that either. I feel like it's an easy way to place blame on someone else instead of holding themselves accountable. If the parents are doing these lawsuits to better the community and take accountability to show other parents, hey, listen, this is where we failed. Don't let your kids also do this stuff. And, yes, the game companies were exploiting certain things. So this is what we did to hold them accountable. Then I'm all in support of it. But at the end of the day, it's a 50-50 thing. Both are accountable. Like I said, if it's a cash grab, then I don't support this lawsuit. And I'll tell that to any family flat out, because you as a parent have the responsibility to discipline your child to an extent and set boundaries. That's your job as a parent, no matter what the circumstances that are going on in your life. Even co-parenting, like you said, a divorce, it's the parent's job to demonstrate good co-parenting and show their kid what a healthy relationship can look like, even if they're not together. That's still the responsibility of the parents. A lot of us don't like to take accountability, and I understand that, but you have to take accountability as the parent to an extent. I'm not saying that they're not doing these things to exploit kids and take advantage of kids, but to an extent, you have to understand you also, in a sense, supported that addiction.
I will
or played a part.
I will say this is that there are multiple different, what's the word I'm looking for, scenarios where it's just not the parent's fault. So an example is, what if the parent doesn't buy them the video games at all and they play video games at their friend's house? You don't know that they're playing video games because they are not in your sphere of influence. They're not home. They're not with you. You can't tell. You can't watch your child 24/7. They could be still developing a video game addiction over there, and you are not physically responsible for it. And you could be seeing the warning signs of them being violent or them being having withdrawal. The only thing they think about is going to visit their friend's house and things like that. You can't be sure of what they're doing. And are you going to tell each parent that they're not allowed to send their child out at all and in just awareness of just any type of addiction and any type of danger? No, because you and probably Mike and definitely my parents told us we can't stay home all day. We need to go outside. And what happens when you go outside is it leads to just people playing basketball, people going out and just like doing stuff. But like that also could just be going to a friend's house and they have a video game console. Guess what? Now you're playing video games. After 2 or 3 weeks, guess what? Now you're addicted. Because we don't know how addiction works with video games, only because they follow, like, each video game is different. Each video game has different patterns and different gameplay loops and things like that. So
I also want to bring up a point where, like, maybe the parents don't think it is an addiction. Maybe because they don't think video game, they might think it's not like a serious addiction. So that could play a role where it can linger without you knowing. And even if you put boundaries, it's the maybe the temper is just like, they just like, they really want to play it. Because most kids, I mean, when we're younger, if we want to play something, we really will we'll fight tooth and nail to try to play it. I don't know, but
I do
seems to say no.
No, it's not that. It's I wanted to, because I know we're running short on time. I wanted to talk about one thing before we got off, and that is what we would think moving forward. If let's say the lawsuit goes through, whatever it doesn't, like, the lawsuit is irrelevant to this discussion, right? For this question, at least. What do you think moving forward regulation wise, because we know that video game addiction is real. It is real. The WHO says it's a disorder. So what regulations would need to be put into video games, or video game companies, or the way they market it, or to the government, a federal thing? What regulations would need to avoid video game addictions, or at least your attempts? Doesn't have to be perfect. What would you
I
think?
don't know, like to add regulations into video games. I mean, you could do what other addictions has, like the phone line, create maybe a phone line and then create like a resource for it. But I don't know if you can like restrict or put regulations in it, because then you're opening a can of worms with other, depending on the regulations you would want to put in, then it's gonna lead to, well, if we're gonna do it just for video games, which is this is video games. Now we're gonna have to think about other things that are negative impact, other addictions, like depending on the regulations, because that you will want to put it. So it's kind of hard to want to do something. You could put time limits, or you could put other countries restrict some online stuff that they have done in their own country. But then where do we draw that line? So I don't know. I think like the creating a resource of specific gaming, because I know they have gambling addictions, phone number to get help and all that stuff. Maybe just add that to expand that to the video games too. If there is, maybe there is. I guess I gotta have to Google it to see if there is a resource, but I haven't really seen one like that. So that would probably the only thing I could think that would add without opening other can of worms.
I agree with Mike though. I don't think I've ever noticed. Maybe you have to run on any game, but I've never noticed a disclaimer saying, hey, if you got a video game addiction, make sure, because like you see that on alcohol and everything else out there. There's some kind of disclaimer that if you have some sort of addiction, make sure to seek help and stuff like that. I think self-awareness is also key. So to preface back to that, I don't want to make it seem like it's only the parents' fault. You got to have self-awareness too, and understand you might have a problem. You might need to go get yourself help. Because like you mentioned off screen, like what about if you're 24, 25 years old and you're out of your parents' house already and you have this addiction? Addiction is one of those crazy things though, because we can talk about it when it comes to drugs and other forms. And there's a lot of ways, and it's a hard subject to really deal with, because you just want to get these people help. And you just want to see people get better and not have a problem and have some sort of self-control. I really wouldn't know how to. I guess I would ask you and defer to you. How do you get away from those dark patterns? How do you get away from that cycle? Can you? Is there really a way without going down a slippery slope like Mike said?
I would say this. There is, just not adding them. Problem is, video game companies are doing what movie companies do, what candy companies, all the companies out there, especially American companies, marketing and spending money to find the behaviors of individuals to make sure they come back, which is a form of behavior analysis, which is just to get addiction. We want dark patterns. Hell, not even dark patterns, just overall urges and nudges exist in all forms of entertainment, because even if you're not addicted, the more you play, the more interest you have in the game, the more you'll buy content for the game. So even if you don't form an addiction, they still want you to keep playing the game. If you stop playing the game, they don't make any money. If you're not ever interested in the game, they don't make any money. So it is a form of capitalism plus these companies. I don't want to say loose morals, but like the lack of morality that certain companies have gained over the years because they've been getting away with so much has allowed them to just not think of the consequences of trying to keep a good gameplay loop and a good entertainment. Because what people don't see is the amount of failures that happen from a lack of these nudges, from a lack of these gameplay loops, from the lack of these dark patterns. those games tend to fail. The successful games are the games that prey on these predatorial or these animalistic urges that we have, these instincts, the subconscious bias that we have. The ones that are becoming addicting are the ones that are successful because the people that are not addicted are borderline addicted to the game. Like, they could stop playing, but they don't want to. And that's that it comes down to. Is it
moderation?
An addiction? Yes. People moderate a lot. And a good example, MMOs. For a long time, MMOs have been critiqued and criticized for how much time needs to be spent in them. Mm-hmm. They have been, it's been a joke, less jokingly so, that they're considered a second job. They're an additional work thing. You have to be always out there. You have to always be grinding. Mm-hmm. In order for people to want to do that, there needs to be incentive. And that's why you have these patterns, these gameplay loops, these incentives, because otherwise you're just going to get a bored player who doesn't come back.
Well, that's why we have people in society paid to figure out that stuff. That's not our job.
Exactly. Well, I in light of the many jokes we have, this is a very serious topic. For all the viewers out there, if you are having a hard time or believe yourself or another individual to be addicted to video games, there are sources out there. Mike has mentioned before. I'll be posting that in the link down below in either the comments or the description. So reach out to any of those that you think are video game addiction, because it is a disorder, and all addictions are very much a fester on this society. So thank you for watching, and please leave a comment on your thoughts. Peace.
Later.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Part-Time Gamers podcast. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. And follow us on our other social platforms on TikTok, Instagram, and Discord. Links for those will be provided in the description. Thank you again. We will see you on the next episode of the podcast. And make sure you make some time for video games. Peace.